If I were to be talking right now, this is how I would be sounding like. So I am talking right now. Is the audio good? Let's find out, shall we? Because I am talking. Yep, 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 yep. I do like to talk though. That's me. Wake up. Okay, let's see. have returned. Where's the game? Oh, there it is. Wait, is it being captured? Cool. Why do you, can you see that? If you're still hearing me, like, there's like a purple crown next to you. Why? Okay. Tells him to come back from Hawaii. He's in great danger. I shall. Great danger. Come back from Hawaii. There we go. Holy, I'm a top fan. So that's what that means? Okay, thanks, YouTube. Also, dude, not cool. I have to study for an exam. I apologize for picking the absolute worst times to do this. One second. I also chose a horrible time to stream for me because I have people decided to message me a lot. Okay, I'm back. Whoa, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. When the two of them returned to the parlor, not only Hideyoshi but the four children and Nanjo as well had gathered there. Genji, who had been talking with Hideyoshi, reported the current situation when he noticed that Natsui had returned. You still have not found my husband and the rest. Yes, my apologies. Also, Kumasawa has begun preparations for breakfast. She said that she will need just a little longer. The clock read a little past 8 a.m. Oh, breakfast at 8 a.m. You're cooked. 8 o'clock was the time that breakfast was supposed to have started. The mere fact that the host had gone over that time limit was a disgrace under normal circumstances. Haron is now searching outside. Furthermore, no one has seen Shannon. What? Okay, that's more than 6 then. Wait, no, that is 6. I forgot because I thought that the 6th was Kinso, but Kinso was there. So Shannon is the 6th. That makes sense. Even Shannon. Honestly, how many people have my husband taken on this walk of his? How many people couldn't be found? With the number of people having grown so large, it was starting to feel truly unpleasant, as though they were the only ones being left out on something interesting. At the very least, it looked like the children. No, Maria especially felt the same way. She was indignant, her stomach grumbling, almost as though her mother and the others had left her alone to go off and eat something delicious without her. Trying to fix her bad mood, the other children were flipping through the channels on the television, trying to find a program that might interest Maria. Nanjo was sitting on the sofa, gazing blissfully at the children while reading a book. No doubt it was a book about chess. The sound of footsteps came rushing towards them with a pitter-patter. There was only one set, so they realized before they saw the source that it was not Kraus and the rest, but probably Kanon. Madam, excuse me. Judging by your appearance, you still haven't been able to find them. My apologies. That will be enough. You've worked hard. She didn't know where they were, but they had to be somewhere on this island. They hadn't put anything in their mouths since last night, so their stomachs must be growling about now. They would surely saunter in any time now. Natsui was already dumbfounded, and she had begun to think that there was no urgent need to find them right then. I will go to the kitchen and prepare some tea for all the guests. Thanks to both of you for all of your hard work so early in the morning. Natsui, acting as though the releasing tension had caused a new surge in her headache, left the parlor. Kanon tried to call her as she left, but Natsui departed swiftly. What is it? Was there something else? Yes. I was unable to find her husband or anyone else, but... Kanon sounded evasive. He still didn't know what they were, where they were, but maybe he had found something with some relation to that. When Eva and Hideyoshi noticed this exchange of words, they came over. They had probably noticed the slightly strange way Kanon was acting. What's going on, Kanon-kun? Did you find Kraus, Nissan, and the others? Actually, something looked odd about the Rose Garden storehouse. Something looked odd. What do you mean by that? It was, how should I explain it? Kanon once again hesitated. He wasn't speaking anything like you expect from the usually fearless Kanon. Eva and Hideyoshi exchanged quizzical looks at this display. What do you mean? You don't mean to say they're inside the storehouse? No, I am going to inspect the inside now. I am just returning to get the key, but, I don't really get it, but it sounds like we're just gonna investigate inside, right? What's the key to the storehouse? It is in the servant room. Let us check inside the storehouse immediately. Kanon dashed off to the servant room and returned with the key. Genji left the parlor saying that he would go check, but Eva and Hideyoshi also followed. What was this something odd about the storehouse that had caused the usually fearless Kanon to hesitate? Must be the blood on the door handle. It was still pouring outside, but the curiosity over this something that Kanon couldn't talk about won out. While the children made a big fuss watching television, Kanon and the rest dashed off to the entrance. The Rose Garden storehouse was a place that housed various tools used to manage the garden. It was definitely not a pretty building. Because of its appearance, it had been built hidden in the corner of the Rose Garden. Kanon, Genji, Eva, and Hideyoshi came cutting across the Rose Garden holding umbrellas. They entered a small path just off the Rose Garden, which was not used by those simply appreciating the garden, but only by those maintaining it. As they dashed further along it, the front of the storehouse came into view. Oops, what did I do? One sec. I forgot to make the stream public. How silly. There we go. It was a very odd old shit of a storehouse, and compared to the flawlessly perfect beauty of the Rose Garden, it was pretty seedy looking. It was easy to understand why I had been built in a hard-to-see place. Eva and Hideyoshi arrived at the storehouse long after Kanon and Genji. You two sure are fast. I thought my heart was gonna explode. I guess they did build a storehouse over here. But what is that? When Eva looked at where Kanon was pointing, she was at a loss for words. Noticing this, Hideyoshi also followed Kanon's finger and was likewise too shocked to speak. To enter the storehouse was a kind of shutter. And there, everyone there now understood why Kanon had been unable to find words that could describe what he saw. On the shutter, which was completely filthy from being exposed to wind and rain for so long, plastered on it. Oh, that's worse than I thought. I thought it was just gonna be blood splatter. That is a symbol. Something that looked like a strange, dark red liquid. Mucus. Or maybe it was some sticky paint. Some kind of ghastly substance that had been used to draw an indescribably eerie shape. The rain had caused it to drip down in several places like fresh blood leaking from an open wound. There was no longer any point in being juicy with words. A ghastly dark red substance meant to look like blood had been used to draw some kind of figure or mark, intended to suggest something ominous. Two concentric circles were drawn there, and inside them was a design that looked like a cross. The four ends of the cross were widely exaggerated, and it looked like some kind of crest from somewhere around Europe. And in the cracks between those shapes, written closely packed together, were some unfamiliar characters. Or possibly symbols. What a vulgar bit of graffiti. Could this be one of those magic circles using demonic rituals? With reference to this ghastly shape drawn with a deep red dripping substance, Hideyoshi's comparison was not unreasonable. When was this drawn? Last night. I came before it started raining, but there was nothing down there at the time. We must do something before anyone else sees this. If they laid eyes upon it, it would cause them great discomfort. That's right. Even though it's just a shed, I don't want to leave such an unpleasant scribble untouched for even 1 second. There is some paint inside the storehouse. Let us paint over it temporarily as an emergency measure. Then repaint it again someday when the weather is good. Genji remembered that he had just recently seen another piece of graffiti and that it too had been made with a strange dark red substance of the same color as this. That must have been. That's right. He had seen it on the door to Natsui's room. Kanon-kun, let's remove this graffiti quickly and return, alright? Even though it's just a storehouse, it's really irritating to have graffiti around the home I was brought up in. Yes, I will take care of it immediately. Kanon squatted in front of the shutter and unlocked it. He then lifted it up with all his strength. Pile of dead bodies. A boisterous noise resounded and the eerie shape drawn in the shutter began to get sucked in through the top of the shutter was raised. At least for the time being, the ominous thing disappeared from the direct gaze and they all breathed a sigh of relief. Hey, I just woke up in Hawaii. There was some strange red stuff on my doorknob, and we just found this weird circle drawn. We're about to check it out. No! You're in great danger. You must return now. Clueless. How did you immediately overtake Ruby's biggest fan thing? How does that work? YouTube loves you more, I guess. Thanks to the kids' program they had come across, Maria was feeling much better. Butler and Jessica were making fun of the kids' program at every turn, cackling. George was enjoying the program along with Maria. Nan just sat on a sofa by himself, passing the time by reading quietly. They heard hurried footsteps coming in from the hallway. They were footsteps from a single person. Did that mean that it wasn't the group of 4 that had just left? Genji was the one who had returned. It was very rare for Genji, who considered being out of breath a violation of a servant's virtues, to be gasping for air. He had probably come dashing back from outside the mansion. His shoulders were soaking wet and he didn't have his usual smart appearance. When Genji noticed Nanjo looking at him, he gave a small silent bow and quickly approached him. Dr. Nanjo, my apologies. Please come with me. Quickly. Whoa! What was happening? As Genji whispered something into Nanjo's ear, Nanjo's face changed color. He stood from the sofa trying not to be noticed by the children who were still engrossed by the TV, and the 2 of them rapidly left the parlor, muffling their footsteps. Just as they were leaving the parlor, they came across Natsui, who was pushing a servant cart along, loaded with a tea set. Genji whispered something into Natsui's ear, and Natsui's face too changed color, shocked. Thus, leaving the servant cart where it was, the 3 of them started dashing towards the entrance. George noticed them running along the rose garden through the window. What's this? Genji-san and Dr. Nanjo, and that's Aunt Natsuhi, isn't it? What's up, Aniki? Maybe something had happened. They looked horribly flustered. Jessica and Maria also realized that something had happened from the fact that Eva, Hideyoshi, and Nanjo were no longer in their seats. And because the serving cart had been abandoned in the entrance of the parlor. Could there have been some kind of accident? Let's go check it out. It's no fun if we're the only ones left out, right? For some reason, what Butler said sounded extremely indiscreet. But they couldn't deny that they were a little insecure and concerned about seeing the adults run off into the rain disregarding their appearance. Let's check it out, alright? I need to know what happened. Jessica, in secure words, spoke for all of them. Hey Maria, are you coming too? I really don't think that's a good idea. Oh gosh. Or will you watch TV?
I want TV.
And the rest of us will go by ourselves. Maria-chan will be back soon. Stay here watching TV. Okay, thank goodness. I don't want her seeing that. By the time the kids went outside, they had lost sight of the adults who had left earlier. But it looked like Jessica had a pretty good idea of where they had gone in the direction they were been running. Following Jessica, they ran through the rain-soaked rose garden. It felt like the wind suddenly got stronger. The malicious sound of thunder began to ring out like the previous night. It felt like something eerie had surrounded the island and it was trying to stop them from moving forward. Jessica, what's over this way? I'm pretty sure there's a storehouse for gardening tools or something. What in the world could have been in a place like that? Just as Jessica had said, a storehouse came into view in front of them. They could also see the adults there. The shutter to the storehouse was open and several of the adults looked as though they were searching for something. For some reason, only Natsui was outside the storehouse, not even holding an umbrella. She was facing away from them and it looked like she was hanging her head. The ones who had just left, Genji, Nanjo, Natsui, and the ones who had left before them, Kanon, Eva, and Hideyoshi, made this a large gathering of people, but there was absolutely no bustle of activity. When Natsui realized that the children had come, a terrible expression rose to their face, and she ran at them with her arms spread wide. Don't come over here! Back to the mansion! However, no. Because of that, the kids saw the scene which Natsui was trying to keep them away from. Inside the storehouse, with the shutter wide open, a flickering fluorescent lights shone down. And over there... Golden Slaughter. There's no way there's actually a dead person. There's no way. No. No Danganronpa body discovery, dude. Jessica piercing shriek rung out. That was just because Jessica's scream was the loudest. The same thing spilled out of Badler and George's mouth as well. Eva, just like Natsuki, spread her arms with a terrible expression roared at the kids. George, take everyone and return to the mansion! Quickly! Right now! When Natsui had spread her arms, one might have thought that she was trying to prevent them from advancing any further. However, right now, that wasn't why Eva was spreading her arms. She was trying to hide a terrible scene from the kids. It was her mother's heart trying to protect the eyes and the hearts of us children by attempting to block our view of that terrible scene by at least the width of one of her arms. Is this some kind of joke? Is it? I had seen these kind of cheap scenes all too often. In manga, TV, anime, and movies. I had seen it over and over again. This was just seeing something appear in real life that I had seen plenty of times before in some of those more sensational movies, wasn't it? It alone shouldn't. But that suit. It's that old bastard, isn't it? To get it? Then that's Uncle Francis, and Kairi-san, and Auntie Rosa. Dad! Dad! You mustn't, Jessica! You mustn't go in! You mustn't look! Dad! Dad! No! No! There's so many characters, dude! No! Bro! Shannon getting proposed was the death flag. Like, that one makes sense. But gosh! Okay, I cannot say I care much for Shannon or Kairi. Rosa, no! Dude, they just got rid of 3 of my favorite characters. Rosa, Kraus, and Badger's father. I forgot his name because I'm fake, I'm sorry. But those 3 were like some of my favorites, dude. No. Kraus and Rosa hurt so much. Oh, I'm gonna miss Rosa. But those were like the bottom favorite characters, at least. My actual favorites are Maria, Jessica, and Natsui. So as long as they're okay, right? Surely they'll be fine. Banger indeed. Rigor has setting across the entire body. Probably. At least 6 hours have passed since death. As far as I can tell by looking at the damage area, there is a high probability that they were damaged after their deaths. No, I must watch what I say. I'm a general practitioner. Examining corpses is outside my area of expertise. So what does that mean? Just killing them wasn't enough, so they went on to do something like this! The devil, this here's the work of the devil! As Aunt Natsui caught Jessica in her arms and Auntie Eva caught George Aniki. So I was the only one who could approach the entrance to the storehouse. Right! His stepmom and dad died there. That's rough. If only there had been someone here to catch me too. I wouldn't have needed to have this horrible evil scene burned into my eyes. No, that's not it. Oh my gosh, before I continue, I just realized the circle means that there's death there, right? So, there was a circle outside the storehouse, and inside, dead people. So the fact that there was also red paint outside Natsui's room means that she was also going to die. But because of the scorpion charm, she was saved. That is what I think. That would be really cute. Standing here, not because the people who would catch me aren't here, but because the people who would catch me are right there. Just as Jessica had said, it did look like a storehouse used to keep gardening tools. A lawnmower and its replacement blades, a grass sickle and a hammer, a saw and some construction tools, piled up potted plants and bags of fertilizer. And treated just the same, the corpses of several people had been laid to rest there. No, had been thrown in there. I could tell them by their clothes. That old bastard Kairi-san, Uncle Kraus and Auntie Rosa. Further back, Doda-san, and there's still more of them. How many people died? Now, I can't even count them on one hand. Damn it! I didn't know whether it had been one of those gardening tools which, if used for something other than their intended purpose, could definitely be wielded with a naked brutality. Or whether some horrible tool had been brought in here specifically for this. Whatever the case, the bodies lying about here, each of them had been given an atrocious makeover. This isn't a temp makeover. This is more like their faces have been plowed. Their faces were smashed, forced into an expression that a normal person couldn't even make after death. I couldn't tell where their eyes or their nose were, but I could find the mouth because it was gaping wide, the ridges of the teeth exposed. But the front teeth were missing, and even the cheek that should have covered that was all torn up and exposed. The stylish makeup that he spent too much time fussing over for a guy, it's no help at all. Jeez. Check tip. I'm scared. Term. So their faces were contorted like the fourth Twilight says. But I'm not sure that's what it means. Ah. Interesting. Ushiromiya Kraus. Corpse found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. The direct cause of death is unknown, but it seems the side of his head was smashed after his death. We start where it all begins. It's not even in order either, because like the these are in order, like, you know, from the rows. But this row got skipped. Weird. Ushiromiya Rulo. Corpse found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. His face seems to have been smashed after his death. He has the right to lament his ill fortune. Ushiromiya Kairi. Corpse found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. Her face seems to have been smashed after her death. She was chosen by the demon's roulette. That's all there is to it. That's horrible. It's like there was no real reason. It was just chance. Ushiromiya Rosa. Corpse found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. Her face seems to have been smashed after her death. I'll be seeing her again, so I'm not lonely. What? What does that mean? Oh, Maria's gonna be alone. Goda Toshiro. Corpse found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. His face seems to have been smashed after his death. How unfortunate. Apparently he was actually supposed to be on duty in the guest house. Right. Because the schedules got flipped. Rob. This is the only one I'm glad is not here anymore. That guy was annoying. Heidi I did not care for. But Rudolph, Rosa, and Kraus hurt so much. Kraus and Rudolph only because reading the dialogue was fun. But Rosa because I genuinely liked her. I'm so sad. Sure, I always thought you were going to hell. But you weren't this bad, right? You weren't to just sell the fish to have this done to you. Anxiety, son. I told you to stop going out with this guy. There was no reason for you to go through this as well. There's no face. There's no fucking face.
Understand, you mustn't look anymore. There's no way that your mother and father would want you to see them like this. For your mother and your father's sake, you mustn't look anymore.
Dead people are supposed to have faces that look like they're sleeping peacefully, aren't they? There's no face, and my dad and Grayson have no faces. I don't know. I don't even know what kind of face they were wearing when they died. What the hell am I meant to do? Are you telling me I have to see these mangled monsters' faces every time I remember Dad and the rest? Well, that's perfect. Because I didn't even want to remember that old bastard smug face anyway. This is perfect. Perfect! But you know, like Kari-san's face as well. Kari-san wasn't a bastard. I sometimes got a little sick of her, but she was a little cool, just like a big sister to me. She didn't deserve this. She didn't deserve this. At least Uncle Kraus is better, isn't he? If not his whole face, just his side. He at least has half of his fucking face left. Better that than this. Better that than this. Oh, Jessica! Trying to shut out my reckless words, Jessica tried to fill her ears with the sound of her own screaming. Stop it, Butler-kun. Just stop it. Just stop it. Anarchy. Anarchy! Ah! Disregarding age and appearance, I fell to my knees, clinging to Aniki's waist and sobbing. It was as if I was crying on behalf of everyone there. Representing the feelings of everyone there, I screamed over and over. I'll be honest, I didn't really think anyone would die. I was just joking. It was just a joke. I was just joking. Father, the ones who are lying over there are Uncle Kraus, Uncle Rudolph, Auntie Kairi, Auntie Rosa, Goda-san, 5 people? Where's Shannon?
No, 6. There's one more here.
The body that Hideyoshi was looking down on now was hidden in the shadow of a mountain of random objects, in a blind spot to George, who had stood by the entrance. So George couldn't tell whose body it was. Therefore, George cursed himself. Oh no! He cursed that part of himself that imagines the worst and is always right. So, the one lying at your feet is Shannon, isn't it?
Yes. It's Shannon-chan.
Dude. George was completely silent. He shook slightly, his lower lip trembling. He wanted to run up to his beloved, screaming and crying. Please, oh my gosh, dude. If she has the ring on her finger, I'm ending stream. I'm ending stream if she has the ring on her finger. But before rashly running up to her, he mustered up all of his strength and asked his father. It's Shannon also. It's the same as Uncle Kraus and the other. Hideyoshi deeply understood the meaning of those words, but he couldn't give George a quick answer. No, he thought that, to George, right now, that was the only possible sincere and loving response. When George had asked whether she was the same, he had meant to ask whether her corpse was the same as the others. Since Hideyoshi hadn't denied it, it meant that the body was just as horrible. And I look at Shannon. No, you can't. Why? After all, I won't be able to see Shannon's face again, right? So, why can't I see her last face?
The last time you met Shannon-chan was yesterday.
Yes.
I see. When you left her, what kind of face was she showing you?
It was a wonderful smile. After receiving the ring, she was bewildered even though her heart should have been decided. Bashful, and so embarrassed to show him that face as she ran away. Her expression was relieved in George's mind.
I see. Then, I'm sure Shannon-chan would also have wished to leave you with that smile.
Hideyoshi looked down upon Shannon's body lying at his feet. Just like the other bodies, it was in such a horrible state that it would make anyone want to cover their eyes. Half of the face had been smashed off, and no more than half her expression remained. If that remaining half, soaked with red with blood, had been wiped clean, a graceful smiling face might have peeked out. Only half of it. Without thinking, Hideyoshi slapped his hand over his eyes. How cruel. If only all of it had been crushed. If they were going to crush it, then he might have been able to deceive George's heart for a while by saying that it was just someone else wearing Shannon's clothes. Yet they had left half of the face. It caused the body so much humiliation, and also made it clear that the body was none other than Shannon. How inhumane. How monstrous. There at Hideyoshi's feet, trying his best to burn the image of the remaining half of Shannon's expression into his eyes, was Kanon. Kanon was not crying. Tears had risen to his eyes, but they did not drip down. But that didn't mean that he wasn't feeling as much sadness as everyone else. Lucy Shannon, who had lived with him in the gospel house, whom he had loved as a sister, must have been just the same as Lucy in a blood relative.
George, I'm sure Shannon-chan would be grateful. She wouldn't want you to see her like this. I'm sure she'd be thanking you for staying strong. I understand. I understand, Father. I understand.
George leaned against the outside wall of the storehouse, sinking down powerlessly. Father,
頼みがあるんだ。
I have a request.
なんや。
can you check her hand?
What is it?
僕の代わりに
I want you to look for me
シャノンが指に
on Shannon's finger.
指輪をつけてるかな。
Is there a ring?
指輪
A ring.
ちょっと見てみる。
Let me see.
Hideyoshi crouched down. As he did, Kanon silently pointed to one of Shannon's hands.
ああ、あるで。
Yeah, there is.
これは
It's a diamond ring.
普通ダイヤとちゃう。
And not a chip diamond.
なかなかの
Must have been pretty expensive.
それは
And
どっちの手の
which hand?
どの指にあるのか
Which finger is it on?
と左手の
The ring finger.
I'm good. I'm good.
The ring finger on her left hand.
そっか。
I see. So Shannon-chan was engaged.
ジョージ、
George, you couldn't have.
エヴァ、
Heva.
今はそんなん関係
Right
ない。
now, that doesn't matter.
シャノンちゃんは
A
男に将来を
man
約束さ
made
れ
a
たんや。
lifelong promise to Shannon-chan.
一生を幸
A
せに
man
しちゃう
promised
と
her happiness for
男
life.
にそれが誰
It
かを
doesn't matter who it
見てちゃ
was.
うで。男にそこまで言わしめて、女の崩壊や
Being
ないか。
told that by a man. It's a woman's dream, isn't it?
いつこの指輪をもらったんかは
I don't know when she received this ring.
誰が渡したかは
I also
知らん
don't know who gave it to her.
だが、
But
それでも
even so, Shannon-chan took this ring.
それを受け入れ
She accepted it
左の薬
and put it on her left ring finger.
指輪を送った
I'm sure the man who gave it to her was happy too.
To most of the people there, Hideyoshi was simply disturbed by this extraordinary situation and was blurting out strange things. But to those who really knew the truth about George and Shannon's relationship, everything he said made sense.
そっか、
I see.
ありがとう、父さん。
Thank you, father. George stood up. The traces of tears still streaked his face, but his expression had returned to his usual calm.
行こ
Let's go.
う、バトラ君。
Butler-kun, Jessica-chan,
これ以上、
if we stay here any longer, we'll get in the way of the
大人
adults. You're right. Jessica sniffled once more, and trying to say that she was alright, she showed her face to her mother, who had been holding her the whole time. When she faced George again, she once again had on her usual face, although she still couldn't recover her smile. Butler, don't lose heart. Butler kept on crouching in front of his parents' bodies.
すまね
I'm sorry.
えな。がっつり泣いたら
It took this much crying to calm me down.
親父の野郎。
You bastard.
普段
Dad?
クソクソ
I bet you're laughing at me. Always talking shit about
ちょ
you.
っと死んじまった
Then
ぐらい
crying
で
like a
ビビ
baby
ったん
just
じゃね
because
え
you
ぜ。
died. It's not my fault.
親が死んだら泣くよ。
It's wired into our genes to cry when our parents die. Butler's face was still bright red from the tears, but even though it was forced, he had at least recovered enough to fake a smile.
カノン、
Conan,
お前もこれ以上
you mustn't remain here any longer either.
子供たちを連れて
Take the children
お
and
屋敷に
return to the mansion. Natsui, unable to take a step from the storehouse, had been standing under the rain the whole time. Maybe she had her own way of grieving, different from Butler's. She realized that she had to take on a sense of responsibility now that her husband was dead. I just realized last stream I said, oh, we gotta kill Kraus so that Natsui becomes the head of the house. I didn't mean it! I didn't mean it! My favorite part here is how Butler's dad dies and the first thing he does is... Yeah? It's very in character. So she gave Kanon those orders.
はい、
Yes,
奥様。
madam. Kanon rose silently and turned to face them. His face was pure white, almost as though his own heart had died along with Shannon. There was no life in his expression. That's why I didn't want to say anything. Immediate, like, literal minutes away from the incident. If during the course of a normal day he had been instructed to do a tour of the beautiful rose garden, Kanon may have led the way for them. But now there was no distinction between Kanon and the children. They were now just kids of about the same age, with the wounds of having lost someone close to them. Right, Shannon wasn't read yet. I don't know if I'm gonna think too hard about this, but it's very odd that this is the only row that wasn't touched. I mean, I guess no, no, no. I think Shannon. Yeah, because Shannon would have been part of this row if they got married. So Shannon was the victim of this row. So Kins obviously lost a lot of children. Natsui lost her husband. Jessica lost her father. Eva lost siblings. Hideyoshi didn't lose anything. Like, obviously he cared for the family. I just mean like super duper close. Meaning, George lost his fiance. Butler lost step parent and parent. Nanjom didn't lose anything. Maria lost mother. If we want to count the servants as a like a family, I guess, they lost. I mean, no, not really. Genji lost nothing. Kurosawa lost nothing. And Kanon lost his basically sister. So Kurosawa, Genji, Nanjo, and Hideyoshi are the ones that didn't fully. Yeah, just those four are the ones that didn't fully lose something. And I kind of want to count Eva as well because she doesn't seem the type to like really care about her siblings, right? But I don't know. I don't know what any of this means. I'm just yapping for yap's sake. Shannon. Corpse found inside the rose garden storehouse. It seems the side of her head was smashed after her death. Don't worry, everyone will be revived in Golden Land. Or so the story goes, or so the story goes. Edging us for this part for months. I love when I do things like that without knowing. It's just so funny every time. Not the first time, won't be the last time. Edging then finishing when I go to Hawaii for 1 week. Ha 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 ha. I have the devil's timing. After seeing the children go back, Natsui gave orders to Genji. Genji, contact the police immediately. They won't be able to get here because of the typhoon. They probably won't be able to come until the typhoon passes. But they should be able to tell us what to do next.
Understood. There is an emergency radio, so I will use that to contact them.
When she heard that, Natsui remembered. That's right, the telephones were out today, weren't they? However, since it had been assumed that there could be trouble with the phones on the isolated island, a radio had been installed. Anyway, let's contact the police and seek their instructions. Wait, let me check something. Are the final phrases connected? We start where it all begins. He has the right to lament his ill fortune. She was chosen by the demons' roulette, that's all there was to it. I'll be seeing her again, so I'm not lonely. Don't worry, everyone will be revived in Golden Land. How unfortunate for me, was actually supposed to be on duty this time. Nah, they're unrelated. 1 second, let me check something on my notes. I return. I got a little sidetracked there. Anyway, let's contact the police and seek their instructions. Everything else can wait.
南條先
Dr. Nanjo,
生、もうこの場は
is there anything further you can do here?
どうしようも
残念ながら
Unfortunately,
私には
I cannot do anything.
わかりました。
Understood.
ケンジ、
Genji, could you at least cover their faces with something?
このようなすり
Exposing them like this is humiliating to them as well.
はい
Yes.
Genji picked up several towels hanging inside the storehouse. When Eva stopped him in a shrill voice.
ちょっとちょっと
Wait a
お
second.
待ちなさいよ。
Stop.
ここは犯行
This
現
is
場
the
なんで
scene
す
of a crime, isn't it?
なら変に手を
Then we
加えて
can't
ない
disturb
私たちは混
them.
乱
In
して
our
いて
confusion, we've tracked the muddy footprints all over the scene, and I'm sure that they will have caused trouble for the police investigation. Natsui glared at Eva testily. Objectively speaking, Eva was right. Even so, she glared at Eva as though accusing her of refusing to do those tragic... which had been humiliated even after death, the simple kindness of covering their faces. However, Eva had spoken both calmly and correctly. This horrible state was definitely not an accident. It was a crime. Someone had killed them. It was a murder case. In that case, they should be careful not to further disturb the site. They had to aid the police as much as possible so that they might hand over a clue that could be used to find this testable culprit.
私もエヴァさんに賛成
I
です
agree with Eva-san.
警察が来るまで
Until the police come, we should leave everything be.
奥さん
What do you say, madam?
そうですね
You're right.
わかりました
Understood.
ここを閉ざしなさい
Close it up.
それから
And,
念の
just in
ため
case, we should put a different lock on
別の
it.
施錠をする
別の施錠
A different law.
Yes.
ここに来た
When we came here, the shutter was locked. That means that the culprit used the key to the shutter to lock it.
確かに通りや
That makes sense. Then, does that mean that the key which opens this shutter will have the killer's fingerprints?
警察に証拠として
I'm sure it'll be worthwhile to submit it to the police as evidence, but Kanon-kun handled it just as normal and used it to open this. It will probably also have his fingerprints on
そ
it.
してその鍵はさ
Also, the key was handed to Genji just now, and he took it with his bare hands. It doesn't look like it will be very useful evidence.
That was careless of me. My apologies.
源氏さん
Genji-san,
倉庫の鍵
are there other keys to the storehouse?
いいえ
No,
この一つ
only this one.
ということは
Which means that the killer walked out of the servant's room with that key,
して律儀に
and then consensuously returned the key to where they found it, right?
Hideyoshi's theory sounded plausible, but it was actually very strange if you thought about it. Why would they go to all the trouble of returning the key they stole? No, if you think about it even more deeply, there was some even more bizarre point. Usually when a criminal hides a body, they are trying to delay the point at which it will be found and use that time to escape. The actual place where the six were killed wasn't necessarily here, but they had been killed somewhere on this island. And it would be normal to think that the reason they had been carried to the storehouse was to hide the bodies and delay the discovery of the crime. But that graffiti drawn on the shutter that looked like an eerie magic circle had eloquently indicated that the corpses were hidden there. It didn't specifically say that they were here, but after 6 people had gone missing, by making such a obvious scribble and even returning the key to open it, it seemed almost as though someone had wanted the corpses to be discovered here.
とにかく
In any case, a lock that the killer has opened once before would not be sufficiently trustworthy on its own.
犯人の手が
If we want to protect this place from the killer's hand, I think we should put a lock on you. A new lock on it.
I think that is a good plan. I agree.
Genji fished around inside the storehouse and unsealed a brand new padlock, which had been inside a small box.
What would you have me do with the key?
私が持ちましょ
I will take it.
う責任を持って
I will take responsibility and hand it over to the police. Matsui took the key to the padlock from Genji's hand. After that, they all exited and lowered the shutter. Because of that, the corpses were once again sealed behind the shutter, covered with a gruesome magic circle. Genji crouched down in front of the shutter to fasten the new padlock. In addition to the main lock on the shutter, there was sometimes a place where you can attach your own lock in front of it. This is one of those types. In the midst of the roar of thunder and the pouring rain, the storehouse stood there ominously. On its closed shutter was the magic circle, drawn in a creepy blood-like substance and swallowing up the bodies of 6 whole people. To Natsui, putting the new lock on may not have been entirely to preserve the scene for the police, but rather, she might have felt like she wanted to shut that mouth for all eternity, to prevent any more victims from being swallowed by their eerie demon. Come on, let's go, everyone. Dr. Nanjo, thank you very much for your work. Genji, quickly contact the police.
I will contact them as soon as I return.
The adults left the storehouse. The ghastly magic circle drawn on that shutter, still swallowing the 6 bodies, loomed eerily, occasionally lit up by the lightning. Well, that was, yeah, curtain rise on tragedy. Small break to get some juice, BRB. Mm-mm-mm. I have returned. Now this is where the real Umineko starts. You're gonna start sounding like Dark Souls players. Every time a boss dies, It's a joke to say, okay, you're done with the tutorial now. Now it's time for the real Dark Souls to start after every single boss. Next, you're gonna say when Beatrice shows up, you're gonna say, oh, okay, okay, now this is where the real Umineko starts. Well, that could be heard from was the sound of the rain, the voices from the kids' television program that Maria was watching. And the Ingros Maria cackling voice. Thank God she didn't follow them. In other words, what greeted them as they returned dumbfounded from the horrible bizarre scene was the voice of Maria as she rolled around laughing at the television. I'm gonna say that even when you're at episode 8, you're just like the Dark Souls fans. Oh my gosh. Not knowing how to explain to Maria that her mother, Rosa, was dead, those who returned to the room couldn't manage any more than a suffocating silence. At first, Maria returned their stares with a dubious look. But when she realized that they weren't trying to blame her for anything, she ignored them and again immersed herself in the television program. Buddy, you said you hate Elden Ring with all your heart and soul. I don't want to hear it. The children wordlessly sat down on the sofa. Their minds were probably blank from their state of shock. Though they had all cried and mourned so much, now that they just vaguely sat there, their faces expressionless. Only Kanon had returned to his usual calm expression. However, that probably didn't mean that he had been able to wipe away out the shock. He's so fake. Ruby's so fake. I don't want to talk to him no more. Nothing was reflected in his eyes as he stared into the emptiness. Hideyoshi, fidgeting as he remembered that horrible scene, kept muttering. Elbow so sad. He's stuck in Hawaii. What a shame. Hideyoshi, fidgeting as he remembered that horrible scene, kept muttering unbelievable. That can't be something of this world. It's the work of the devil. Every once in a while, he turned these into questions and bounced them off Nanjo. But Nanjo, in a calm, doctorly manner, kept repeating that nothing could be understood by only glancing at the scene, and that until the police arrived, he wouldn't know anything. However, Nanjo only appeared calm by comparison to Hideyoshi, who could not contain his agitation and fear. In fact, Nanjo had also received a huge shock, and his face was deathly pale. Maybe it was because of their attitudes that Natsuki tried to raise to the challenge and take control. Natsuki was apparently unchanged from her normal attitude, and she briskly gave directions. I will head to where father is. Genji, quickly contact the police.
Certainly.
I wonder if you would allow me to tag along, Matsuini-san. Since Krausny-san is now gone, the task of aiding father has been left to me. It would be improper of me to relax here while relying entirely on you. Why is she back to this personality, dude? Does she not know a break? I'm telling you, she didn't truly lose anything in that, so she's just chill. That's why he was struck speechless by Eva's aggressive actions in a situation like this. That's what I'm saying. It seemed that she was claiming that with Kraus dead, the one to take responsibility should not be his wife, but herself, the next highly ranked in the family. Okay, so, Ruby was right, that Eva would be next, not Jessica. Possibly she was not happy that Natsui was ignoring her and handling matters herself in this extreme situation. Of course, even Eva's mind had been blank from the shock until now. She only returned to herself after Natsuki started giving orders. I hate her. I hate her. You may do so as you please. Natsui walked out without saying anything more. Eva followed behind her. Mere moments after they left, Kuwasawa-san ran into the parlor. Since she wasn't the kind of person to run around, it would be normal to sense that something had happened. But since everyone had been stricken by that earlier shock, none of them took any notice of this tribal difference. Madame,
夏
madame.
姉さんならお父さんのところへ
If you're looking for Natsuhi-san, she went to see father.
すぐ戻ってくる
She'll
や
probably be back soon.
どないしたんや熊沢さん
What happened, Kuwasawa-san?
それ
That is, it's the dining hall. Blood. Blood. What? No way. Everyone in the parlor turned to listen. Everyone thought the same thing. I hope I misheard that. I mean, no one else is missing. We just saw Kinso. Obviously, we saw everyone. We've seen everyone. So no one's there. Just like how any container has a limit to how much you can put in it. No one felt like they could accept any more tragedies beyond what had already happened. But everyone was here. We've had, like... Think for a second. They all thought it. I hope I misheard that.
What? In the dining hall.
朝食の準備に食堂に
What, are you saying that while everyone was outside, Kinso came to the dining hall and died? When I went to the dining hall to set up breakfast... The first to start running was George. His harsh footsteps jogged Hideyoshi and Nanjo to their senses and they chased after him. I mean, it can only be Kinso. If someone is dead here, it can only be Kinso because he was the one that stayed. And obviously Maria also stayed, but she was alive. After him, Butler and the others followed. Gonna take a swig of my water. They flew into the dining hall one after the other, but they didn't find any change that would have caused Kuwasawa to go pale. To those who had viewed that gruesome scene in the storehouse, it was a bit of an anticlimax. However, Kuwasawa, who had followed them, pointed it out. There really were some traces of blood on the floor. Compared to that terrible scene, it was not very dramatic. However, if you calmly thought about it, this definitely indicated the loss of a lot of blood.
ここにも血だまりがあるよ
There's a puddle of blood there, here as well. What in the world?
It appears that a great deal of time has passed. It's probably safe to say that they were killed here last night.
Oh, because they were still having the discussion and Natsui left early, so Natsui's headache also saved her. Okay, so the circle, I don't think the circle has anything to do with it. It's just that whoever killed them tried to open Natsui's door, and that's why there was blood there, because of their blood-soaked hands, but they couldn't open it because of the scorpion charm. Watch. Very interesting.
It would seem to me that we've been talking together in the dining hall until late into the night. After that, someone must have broken in.
父さんたちが打ち合わせを
Oh yeah, and Hideyoshi and Eva said that they went also earlier than the rest. They all kept talking. Father, when did you two let yourselves out of the meeting and go to sleep?
It was a little past midnight. So, sometime after that. Probably when it happened.
マジかよ
I can't take this. Milady, stay strong. After seeing that hell on earth in the storehouse, I think I can handle this much. Really? Great for you! I feel like my head's gonna freaking explode. This is the dining hall, you know? This is where every day I would eat, complain about school, complain about homework, talk to Dad about my grades. That's what this place is to me. Lady, it wouldn't be good to remain here any longer. Let's return to the parlor. I agree. Uncle Hideyoshi, I think this room would be really important to the police. Don't you think it would be bad if we trampled all over it? Butler proposed this in a slightly powerful voice as, together with Kanon, he grabbed the pail and shaking Jessica's shoulders.
Everything is just as Butler-san has said. There is nothing more to be gained from remaining in this room.
None just spoke while looking at the pale faces all around. Even though that horrible scene in the storehouse had felt like something not out of the world. At least it was in a place far from here, a place we had been able to cut ourselves off and run away from, which had helped everyone keep on going. However, this dining hall was different. It was the mansion's main wing, and as Jessica had said, it was supposed to be one of the more relaxing places within the mansion. It was the same place where all of the relatives had enjoyed lunch and dinner yesterday. The shock of seeing this place smashed with blood, smeared with blood, reminded us of that horrible spectacle in the storehouse. And forced us to accept that we really hadn't been able to run away from this scene of the tragedy.
Yeah, I agree too. The killer might have left traces in this room. Amateurs like us shouldn't stir the place up. Let us leave quick. Come on, come on!
Hideyoshi also understood the meaning of what Butler had said and pushed everyone to hurry out of the dining hall. The way we were then, looking at that blood any longer would have been too harsh. Nobody went against his words. Everyone raced each other out of the dining hall. Almost as though the last person in this room would be trapped in there, all alone. Okay, so during the midnight of this day, those who remain shall teleport to our close. So I thought the two who were close were Kanon and Shannon. Obviously, they have been torn apart already. No, they really hit me with the Scott Cawthon, all your theories are wrong, goodbye. Who in the world here would count as those who are close? Like, the only one that makes sense to me is the only married couple left. Because Rudolph and Kairi died together. Natsuhi already lost her husband. Rosa didn't have a husband to begin with, and she said. So the only ones who are close is the only married couple left, which is Eva and Hideyoshi. So I believe that in the twilight of this day, Hideyoshi and Eva will be torn apart, wherever that means. That's what makes sense to me. But those who are close doesn't necessarily mean romantic. It could be friendship-wise. So like, George and Butler have been very close friends for a long time. Maybe Butler and Jessica. Maybe it's familial, and it's Jessica and Natsuhi, because they seem pretty close. Maybe it's something completely out of the box, and it's something like Kinso and Beatrice or something. We don't know. There's too much. Scott Cawthon does it again. Once in a hallway, we lent a shoulder to Kuwasawa, who was leaning against the wall, still trembling, and we all headed back into the parlor together. And Genji returned.
Oh, Genji-san. Were you able to contact the police? I can only offer my sincerest apologies. Whether it was a failure of the radio or something else that caused it, I cannot tell, but What? You can't reach the police! You tried the phone and the radio and both failed! My apologies. A boat will be arriving on Monday morning, and I believe we'll be able to borrow their communications equipment. Isn't there a boat on this island? Can we just take a little trip out to the Nijima Police Department? Hideyoshi-san, that would be impossible with this weather. At the very least, we can't do anything until the typhoon passes by us. Kraus-sama's boat is being repaired and is not on this island. Therefore, I am afraid we have no option but to wait for Monday's boat. How could this happen? 6 people are dead! The phones and radios aren't working and there's no boat! So until the typhoon passes and the boat comes until tomorrow morning, we just have to stay here on this island unable to even contact the police!
Which means that, just us, but the criminal who killed everyone is also confined to this island. That certainly follows. The culprit who killed everyone is still here on this island. So the bastard that killed Tad and the others can't get off this island, and he's still around here somewhere. Damn it. Damn it. I'll find you, you bastard. You think I'll hand you over to the police? I'll tear you to shreds myself. Oh yeah, maybe don't be talking about all this with Maria around. Uh-oh. Maria had finally realized that something was odd in the parlor. Or rather than noticing something odd, it was probably better to say that she felt unhappy and neglected since everyone was getting so excited about something only she didn't know about. Jessica-chan. Okay, did someone die? The way she spoke was completely calm, just as though she was talking about characters in a TV drama, as though it didn't affect her at all. Jessica probably didn't like that. As though she was trying to say, "Can you tell just by looking at me overwhelmed with grief?" She flared up against Maria. No! Dude! Aww. They all died. Everyone! Everyone! Dad, Peter's mother and father, Ghost and Shannon, and even you. Dude! Dude. And even your mother too. Stop it, Jessica-chan. You aren't the only one who's sad.
Maria-san, I know this will come as a shock, but please listen. Your mother has died.
I have a feeling that Maria is not going to fully care. I think that because she knows it's the work of Beatriz, she's gonna be like, "Oh, that's okay. We'll see her later. Mama is dead." Hmm? Yes, someone killed her. I know it's sad, but stay strong. How many people died? 6 people! 6! How could you do something? There's a limit to how cruel you can be if you're a human. I don't know who it is, but the killer's not human. Maybe literally. There's no way their blood is red. Killer's not human. Just chosen by the... Huh? Hey, Maria. Did you say something just now? Maria had just said something. Was this the words were so remotely separated from the flow and context of the conversation for a second, I couldn't understand them. As I was about to ask her to repeat it, I was shocked by the sudden sound of Aunt Natsui's loud voice coming from the entrance of the parlor. It looked like Aunt Natsui and Auntie Eva had returned from the trip to see grandfather. Ain't no way he's dead. No. You can't do this to me. I refuse to believe it. Okay, phew, thank goodness. You can contact them with the radio. We can't use it at a time like this. Why do we even have an emergency radio?
My apologies. I believe it was having annual maintenance inspections, but
ほら、光をチカチカさせるみたいな選択
Wait,
信
what
号
about
っ
one
て
of
あるじゃ
those
ない
boat signaling devices where you can flicker the light on and
そういう
off?
ので向こうの島に
Couldn't
連
you
絡
use
する
something
こと
like
はで
that
き
to
ないの
contact
か
the
し
next
ら
island?
we do not have such equipment. My apologies.
Just then, Kurosawa came, pushing a serving cart loaded with breakfast. Since there was no way we would be able to eat in the dining hall, Hideyoshi had ordered her to bring it to the parlor.
なぜ朝食をこちらに
Why are we eating breakfast here?
Natsui-san, I'll see you later. More importantly, Eva, how was father?
ご一緒でないところを見ると
Judging by the fact that he is not with you, he won't even leave his room for a situation like this.
いないわ
He isn't there.
部屋は空っ
The
ぽ
room
だっ
was
たの
empty.
なんやて
The witch of the painting.
What
こ
the?
んな時に
Where could he have gone at a time like this?
親方様が
Did you say that the master has left the study?
そうです
That's right. Why am I
私
surprised
も
as to you?
いつの間に部屋
I
を出た
wonder when he left this room.
あなたたちに
Do either of you have an idea? Natsui looked at Genji and Kanon as she said this. Let me think. Let me think. I don't think I no longer believe that Battler is the key. I think Kinso is the key. Because he wrote the thing, right? So he would be egotistical enough to call himself the key. So the village is the island we're on right now. The shores, obviously, where the boat landed, so it's telling everyone to go to this island where they already are. And that's where the Golden Land lives. They're the key to the Golden Land, so Kinso's calling himself the key to the Golden Land, which makes sense. He has the gold, right? So this means that the six chosen by the key, it means that Kinso killed those six people, which makes total sense. So yes, and then the key stops being mentioned from then on. So like he knows that he will probably not make it to the end. He was just egotistical enough to call himself the key. So now I believe that Kinso was the key. Oh yeah, last time you said tips, I realized that you meant characters, yeah. Grayed out now. It's appeared in a study unannounced. Kinso's study has everything from a bed to a toilet to a bathtub, so it's extremely rare for him to go outside. However, he does sometimes go out for a walk on a whim without telling anybody, which on several occasions has led to a huge uproar throughout the house. He usually comes back as soon as he gets hungry. Usually. Natsui looked at Genji and Kanon as she said this. She probably thought that the servant permitted to the one-winged eagle who served directly under him would know of a place he might go. However, it seemed to be the other way around. Their faces made it clear that those who knew Kinso's best realized even more than everyone else how impossible it was for him to leave his room.
僕たちにも見当がつきま
Even
せん
we have no idea.
As you all know, the master had everything set up within the study, from a place to sleep to a bathroom. I cannot imagine him leaving that room except under very exceptional circumstances.
となると
In that case, what? Isn't it natural to think that one of those very exceptional circumstances came up?
まだそうと決まったわけではありません
We still don't know whether that is the case. Anyway, he is a fickle person, so it is possible that he went for a walk by himself without knowing the current situation. If that is the case, we have to tell him what has happened and ask for instructions as fast as we can.
そうね
That's right. Although I don't want to think about it, it's possible that something has happened to him, isn't it?
あったのかもしれないそのような不吉なことは
I don't even want to
考え
think
たくもあ
about
りませ
something
ん
that ominous. No one had seen Kinsel since the 6 horrible corpses had been found. On top of that, the phones were broken, the radio wouldn't reach anyone, and there was no way to contact the police. It looked like the typhoon would leave tomorrow and a boat would come. But until then, no one could rely on anyone outside the island, nor could they escape the island. Everyone had lost their composure at the extremely sudden tragedy. A heavy silence and a sense of impatience. Even though they needed to do something, they couldn't think of anything. Some of them became irritated, while others merely held their heads in their hands. But not one of them could explain what was occurring on this island of Rokkenjima. After that, we sat in the parlor and wordlessly chewed through the breakfast that Kuwasawa-san had made. Of course, this was right after something like that had happened. No one had any appetite. However, we realized that not eating would weaken our bodies. It would also be rude to Kuwasawa-san, who had made the breakfast. Kuwasawa-san had taken the tasteful western vegetables when the Goda-san had probably special ordered from the purpose of some extravagantly fancy dish and cooked them in a Japanese style, making them turn an unpleasant color. As to what Goda-san had been planning to cook with those ingredients, right then I couldn't even imagine it. If I did think about it, I would be reminded of the way Goda-san had died, and the inside of my mouth would be filled with a sour taste. For the time being, everyone pretended to eat, but there was no hope of anyone making any headway into the meal. Then, everyone was brought up to speed with the current situation. First off, that Uncle Kraus, my dad, Kairi-san, Auntie Rosa, Goda-san, and Shannon-chan had been found in the Rose Garden storehouse as cruelly mutilated corpses. And that despite that, we were unable to use phones or radio and still couldn't contact the police. So until the typhoon passed, there was nothing we could do. Furthermore, grandfather, who had hoped might be able to show him a little leadership in this kind of situation, had disappeared at some point. Goda-san hadn't made breakfast, so grandfather's stomach must have been empty. And if he had just been taking a casual walk, by now he should have been stomping back to whine about how hungry he was. And yet, he didn't appear. There was more than a small chance that he had become caught up in the earlier crime. My Natsui and Auntie Eva had said that on their return trip from going to see Kinsel, they had called out to him on every floor looking for him, but were not able to find him. If you think about the timing of it all, it was probably best to think that he had been caught up in the crime. If the culprit had taken the trouble to move the bodies of Dad and the rest, who we figured had been killed in the dining hall, all the way to the storehouse, then maybe they had already killed Grandfather. Well, no, because Natsui checked up on him this morning. He was still there this morning. So he must have left whilst everyone was outside. If we ask Maria, she probably saw him go out. Meaning that if he is the culprit, during midnight, he went to the dining hall, killed everyone, moved their bodies, went back to his study, stayed in his study until Natsui came to check up on him in the morning, then he left again. Moved his body to some strange location, and we had simply not found it yet. No one actually said it, but this theory seemed extremely convincing. We will go check that all of the windows and doors are closed. We must also carefully search your father. Children, make sure you do not leave this room. Eva-san and Hideyoshi-san, I'm sorry, but please stay here with the children. Dr. Nanjo as well.
I understand. I will wait here.
Natsui led the servants. Genji-san, Kurosawa-san, and Kanon-kun out of the parlor. All that was left was Auntie Eva, Uncle Hideyoshi, Dr. Nanjo, and the 4 of us children as a total of 7 people.
Let us all stick together and maybe watch some TV while we wait. Gee, Sunday daytime TV sure does have many good shows on, huh?
Uncle Hideyoshi tried to stir up this gloomy atmosphere, acting cheerfully. Good show, watch it, watch it!
Oh really? You want to watch TV, Maria-chan? Then come and watch it with your uncle.
Maria was the only one who played along. Even though Maria had been told of her mother's death, she didn't show the slightest flicker in her emotions. I told you. She knows something. She's hiding something. 1 second. Returned. Was 9 really this young an age? No one else was feeling the slightest bit like joining in, but they each sank into their sofas and let their minds go blank. Aniki, can I ask you something? What is it? Just now in the storehouse. You said something about Shannon-chan in a ring. Maybe not the best time. Did you give that to her? Lord Shaniki didn't answer, but he hung his head and closed both of his eyes. There could be no clear response. Hey, Bettler. Have some tact. You're right. I shouldn't have asked that. World End BP. That's right. It was me. Last night, I was close to her. That was when I gave her that ring. I told her that tomorrow, she should put it on whatever finger she wanted. That's her answer. I must have sounded so full of myself. And that ring had been on the ring finger of Shannon-chan's left hand. Actually, I've been having talks with Shannon for several years. How about you, George-san? I wonder what she could have said. Shannon was always really bad at lying. It was instantly obvious that it was you she was talking about. She asked whether it would be okay if she got close to you, being just a servant. She asked about stuff like what kind of things do boys like, and what kind of clothes should she wear to make them happy. Lots of stuff like that. How should I say it? Well, I was jealous of her. All that, and right after she's handed the engagement ring, Badler, please. It's just all over. I know people value things differently, but being proposed to by a man is, in a way, the high point of a girl's life. So I'm sure last night, I think Shannon was happy from the bottom of her heart. No, the happiest she's ever been since she was born. George Shaniki, without raising his head, sighed deeply. Or maybe tears had risen into his eyes. It seems that Shannon was on duty in the guest house last night, but because she was too embarrassed to go back to the guest house with me, she went over to the mansion. This is what Shannon's feelings. When you received an engagement ring, no matter how much you prepared for it beforehand, it's normal to feel so elated your mind goes blank. She must have been so embarrassed she didn't know what to do with herself. And then Shannon, even though she hadn't been on duty there, she went to the mansion. Got cut off on all of this. If only I hadn't. On that day, in that place, given her that ring, Shannon wouldn't have. Saya wouldn't have been cut off in this incident. Aniki, it's not like that. It's definitely not like that. So don't cry anymore. Butler-kun, leave him be. After those words from Auntie Eva, I stopped talking to him. Misplaced words of comfort might actually hurt him. Jessica sat down next to Aniki and quietly pat an arm around her. Maybe only Jessica, who had known about Aniki and Shannon's love since the beginning, and who had been discussing their relationship with Shannon, could comfort Aniki now. I went over to Auntie Eva and sat down on the opposite sofa. Butler-kun, you really are strong. It looks like you've kept a good hold on yourself. Well, look, the depth of love comes from the depth of the wound, right? That old bastard couldn't care less about no matter how he snuffed it. I feel bad about Kairi-san, but, well, she wasn't actually my parent. My. But on the other hand, you were crying a lot back then, right? Well, I just think that at least that much crying was due as gratitude to the parent who raised me. The way you can switch your mood quickly like that and your dry tone must have come from Rulo. That kid would always get violently happy, sad, and angry. But he would always regain his cool immediately afterwards. It's nothing like that. I haven't really been able to get over the shock yet either. I think it's just that the emotions that rose up in me were different from everybody else's. What do you mean? I was acting much calmer than George, Aniki, and Jessica were. It wasn't because my sadness was less intense, but I already sprung back to normal. It was because my sadness had been gradually replaced by a different emotion. Rather than sadness, it's more like I'm irritated. What bastard did this and where the hell is he? I feel like I can't settle down until I've smacked him upside the face. That was what I really wanted to do. It was like I couldn't allow myself to just sit here overwhelmed with sadness and hung in my knees. Since the time Dad and everyone else was killed, this island has remained covered by the typhoon. In short, that means that the asshole who pulled this disgusting, detestable bullshit is still somewhere on this island. It certainly does. I wonder if they're hiding themselves somewhere in that dark forest even now. I felt like I had a very similar conversation with Kairi-san that night before. That's right. After the letter from the person who claims to be Beatrice appeared at the dinner table last night, we had talked about whether or not a 19th person actually exists. Auntie Eva, these murders, do you think they have anything to do with the letter from Beatrice last night? Ah, that thing. Well, I wonder. Although all of us siblings were in agreement that the mysterious letter had been sent to further complicate the problem of father's inheritance, as to whether that and the incident this morning are related, it's impossible to tell at this stage. Was the letter really given to Maria by some witch called Beatrice? How could it be? All of it was a farce devised by father, wasn't it? He made someone like Shannon-chan wear the dress from the portrait and deceived Maria-chan, right? Isn't that just the kind of intricate prank father would pull? Last night I talked with Kairi-san about whether Beatrice actually exists. And she also said that Beatrice is probably one of the 18 of us. Isn't that obvious? There's no one else on this island beside us, so obviously it must have been someone amongst us pretending to be Beatrice. There's no one else but us on this island, huh? Obviously, right? Who else could it be? No one on this island except us. There are only 18 people. So the one who pretended to be Beatrice has to be one of those 18. Kairi-san had denied that there was a 19th person by flipping over the chessboard. Even though Auntie Eva hadn't constructed an argument that complicated, her opinion at least was the same. Except if that is the case, our situation starts to look very ugly. At the time of Beatrice's letter, we were able to dismiss the matter as just someone's prank. However, if we deny the existence of a 19th person at this point, matters are just not so jovial. In other words, if there's no 19th person, then the culprit who killed Dad and the others is also one of those 18, right? So in other words, That would mean that someone in this very mansion is the one who killed them. Auntie Eva smiled meaningfully. It looked like Auntie thought that this conclusion should have been obvious from the very beginning. The culprit carried the bodies of those 6 into the storehouse. But they sure did a good job getting into the storehouse, didn't they? That shutter was always kept closed and locked, as I'm told. In other words, in order to carry them into the storehouse, the culprit would need to unlock the shutter. Understand? Is there any possibility that the shutter was left open by mistake that day? The servant said that it's always shut. In other words, unless they brought the keys out from the servant room, they definitely couldn't have opened the storehouse. It's the only key, the one in the servant room. Genji-san said so, yeah? Which means the culprit knew where that single key was stored and took it out. Just now, my Kanon-kun returned the key to the servant room. That wall was packed with keys, and I don't think that a novice would know where and to what those keys went to. The culprit was magnificently able to select the key to the storehouse from all of those. Furthermore, even though the key didn't have a tag or anything sticking to it, they knew it was the key to the storehouse behind the rose garden. And while I'm at it, they also knew where the storehouse was. I'll say it even clearer. The culprit knew the inside of the servant room well. Her argument was extremely plain and clear. If the bodies had been thrown somewhere in the bushes of the rose garden, no explanation would have been necessary. However, the one key to the storehouse was in the servant room, and stored with a large group of other keys, such that a novice would not have been able to tell them apart. This meant that the culprit was someone who was used to going in and out of the servant room and knew well where the key was. The family didn't normally go into the servant room, which means that one of the servants is the culprit. I'm sorry, but even your auntie can't say any more than that. However, I'll tell you one thing. What's that? The culprits. We should probably say they were culprits in the plural, and what's more, they were well armed. You see it, don't you? They had to assault the 4 dining halls, kill them all at once, drag a total of 6 bodies all the way to the storehouse beyond the rose garden, and scribble the disgusting markup on their faces. There's no way that a single culprit could carry all of this out on their own, right? That's possible. It might have not been if a single person spent enough time on it, but that would have taken ages. It's probably best to think that a significant number of people had been part of it. I don't deny what you say, but I also don't think that, they did it for funsies. Didn't they say that Beatriz is the true master of the house? And also that letter had Beatriz take control as head of the mansion, meaning that it was Beatriz who ordered the servants to do it, and they couldn't say no because she's the actual master of the house. That's what I'm thinking. I think the servants might have been responsible, but not out of their own volition. Ooh. So what you mean is, maybe all of the servants were in cahoots. Please keep it quiet, okay? It's sad to speak from speculation alone. Besides, what would you do if it were really true? They might not let us return alive. This is an opponent who had no trouble killing Nisan and the 3 others. The only people now who look like they could put up a decent fight are the 3 people in my family, and maybe you as well, 4 at most. The situation is no different than it was last night. In short, it would be easy for the culprit to massacre the rest of us. I had been playing detective with Auntie Eva out of desire to expose the person who had killed Dad and the rest before the police did. If I could manage to skillfully penetrate the culprit's identity, I want to stick the evidence in their face. I had gotten it into my head that if I did that, the culprit would give up and surrender, just like in one of those detective movies. However, the culprit only surrenders there because they are situations where resisting would be futile. The culprits behind these incidents on the island were far from helpless, and might even be able to massacre all of the remaining people on the island. On top of that, this island was like a giant locked room cut off from the outside world by the typhoon. So they had the full day until tomorrow to kill, scheme, and cover up their handiwork. In short, we weren't in the kind of safe atmosphere where we could entertain ourselves at playing detective. On the contrary, we were at a stage where we had to be scared stiff, since playing detective might displease the culprits and cause them to repeat another mass murder. Well, it is just a possibility, right? But I can't bring myself to trust the servants yet. And that doesn't mean they're the only ones I suspect. I also think there might be some mastermind behind all of this. Okay, so we're thinking the same here. I'm sure that she thinks that... No, she's gonna blame Natsuki, dude. She's gonna blame Natsuki. I think it would be more sensible to blame Kinso, but I think the true answer is Beatrice. A mastermind? Why do you say that? It's just a feeling. Think about what the word servant literally means. It means they serve someone. They do someone's bidding, right? Anyone who was killed and has some relation to the Ushinomiya family. So it would be natural for someone with interest in that result to be involved. This was also plain and clear. The Ushinomiya family were currently right in the middle of discussing how to distribute the inheritance of if grandfather died. This followed the formulaic plot used to death by many classic mystery novels. It would definitely be a crime by someone with ties to the Ushinomiya family and who was entangled in the inheritance problem. Auntie had probably also read a few books in that genre. Her theory did have a few one-sided conclusions to it, but it was the run-of-the-mill idea that anyone would surely hit upon. I think anyone who would have suspected the servants, even if their logic was different, especially the talk revolving around the key, the shutter, that was enough to make it easy to suspect strongly that one of the servants was involved in the case. Which is why... I don't like it for some reason. What do you mean you don't like it? Nah, just talking to myself. I dodged the question by joking, but I couldn't wipe out the sense of unease I felt inside me. Because the reasoning we had arrived at was altogether too simple. Reasoning that anyone could arrive at. And I just couldn't accept that. If I tried flipping over the chessboard like I had learned from Kairi-san, that was exactly why it was impossible for the servants to be the culprits. If the servants really had been the culprits, they wouldn't have hidden the bodies in a place that was tied to themselves. Certainly not Rose Garden storehouse of all places whose key they themselves controlled. The police would probably immediately pursue whoever had been in control of the key. That would create a danger for exposure. If we were to assume that they were the culprits, they had no reason to carry the bodies into the storehouse. Did they expect us to think that and so put them in the storehouse deliberately? No, that definitely didn't make sense. When the police come and inspect the site, all kinds of things would probably become clear. No matter how deeply careful the culprits were in carrying out the murder, some kind of trace will definitely be found. So in summary, they have everything to lose and nothing to gain. If you think about it this way, look at the game from the culprit's side. It feels like there's no point in advertising the location of the corpses. If the bodies were found, a report would be sent to the police. The remaining people would become more cautious. They could start looking for who was responsible. Anyway, none of these things would make the culprits feel any more comfortable. Just like the words of the main characters in another novel I read recently called Higurashi no Naku Koroni. Is that when they cry? Is this... Spoilers? A mystery story has 4 parts: introduction, development, turn, and conclusion. And so, to commit the perfect crime, it is essential to eliminate the introduction. Right now, no one knew where grandfather was. We didn't know whether he had already become a victim or if he was one of the culprits. But this state of confusion had to be beneficial to whoever did this. By blatantly advertising the bodies to us. Stop, Adler, that's spoilers! By blatantly advertising the bodies to us and declaring, hey, there's a murder case going on, the culprit had absolutely nothing to gain. Right, that was where we could flip over the chessboard. So this blatant advertisement of the bodies was itself the culprit's goal. So it may well be that to the culprit, having the 6 bodies be present there meant more than the deaths themselves. In other words, the culprit wanted to display these murders. To who? To us. It was a message. The culprit was trying to shove something in our faces. I didn't know what that could be. At the current time, none of us could grasp anything from this vulgar mass murder except malice. Malice towards everyone, perhaps. Each one of the survivors had some kind of connection to the one of those 6 who had been killed. Uncle Carlos's death brought sorrow to Jessica's family. This is repeating what I said. The deaths of Dad and Kairi brought sorrow to me, while Auntie Rosa's death brought sorrow to Maria. Well, I mean, it should have. Goda-san's death probably dealt a shock to his fellow servants. And Shanon-chan's death brought grief to George Aniki, who had proposed to her, and to Kanun-kun, who had loved her like an older sister. Everyone now on this island had received an equal amount of sadness. Except Hideyoshi and Eva. Auntie Eva had claimed that the servants were definitely in cahoots. But then, how could you explain the deaths of Goda-san and Shanon-chan? And by this argument, the grief caused by the 6 deaths hit everyone but Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi. It was very possible to doubt Auntie Eva herself, who was acting like she was outside the net of suspicion and who might have been trying to point at the suspicion of the servant. In the first place, she had managed to avoid suspicion and place it on the servants with that argument about the key to the shutter. But if you look at it from the perspective of the motive, about who would gain something from the murders, Auntie Eva's name flooded to the very top of the list. Butler-kun, Auntie knows what you're thinking, okay?
What?
Huh? Oh no. Please don't tell anyone. That I had my head all full of, you know, that kind of stuff. I'm the one who would gain the most from these murders. Since I'm going to be suspected anyway, I might as well get it out in the open myself. I had tried to dodge this conversation by joking around, but it looked like it hadn't worked. The inheritance is to be divided among the siblings. But now, the 4 siblings are just me. All the assets of the Ushinomiya family will become mine. If Uncle Hideyoshi heard you, he'd say, give it a rest, Eva, it's not a joke. I'm okay, I'm sorry, okay? No matter how I tried to smooth it over, I'd just be suspected anyway, so I was just fooling around. So I've been thinking from my point of view, this murder might have been planned to cast suspicion on me. Unfortunately, my alibi for last night is weak. Tell me about it? How about last night? As you know, the discussion of how we siblings would gnaw apart the inheritance continued until late in the night, but I don't know how late it lasted. My husband and I had woken up early in that morning. We were so sleepy and we let ourselves out a little past midnight. We then returned to the guest house and rested there. Can anyone other than Uncle Hideyoshi prove that? Of course, it's not like I'm suspecting you or anything, you know. My, I wonder about that. I don't know if it counts as proof, but when we returned to the guest house, we were greeted by Genji-san and asked if we needed a towel. I think that should be enough to prove that we returned to the guest house a little after midnight. Of course, my theory was correct and the servants were all in cahoots. That wouldn't actually make her an alibi, would it? That is the point, isn't it? Does that mean that right now, I'm playing detective with the real culprit? But let me say this for my honor's sake. If my goal was the inheritance, I wouldn't commit this weird kind of crime. After all, if I just wanted to make them forfeit their rights to the inheritance, the method of their deaths wouldn't have mattered. On the contrary, I would try to make their deaths look like an accident, wouldn't I? If I have been roping in the servants and carefully planning everything out, that's even more reason I'll do that. You're right about that. If you were killing someone to make a profit, you definitely shouldn't make it look like a murder. You see? So from here on, your auntie will be in a very blue mood. I'll probably be treated as the person behind this by the police and harshly investigated. I can't wait. Auntie Eva shrugged with a bitter smile. Just like it was easy to think of the servants as suspicious, it was also very easy to think of Auntie Eva as suspicious. So we flip over the chessboard. Did that mean it was impossible for the culprit to be easily doubtable, Auntie Eva? However, if that logic could pass so easily, then motive wouldn't count for anything. No, that can't be right. Knowing the motive should be a big clue towards knowing the culprit. That is why murderers throughout history have tried to ensure the motive will not be found out by skillfully complicating the incidents. I don't know. Every time I flip over the chessboard, it keeps flipping from front to back and back to front. Were my thoughts closing in on the truth? Or... Auntie Eva didn't want to walk away. Auntie Eva didn't want to talk any more than that, so I headed to the window, folding my arms so that I could cool my head a little. As I looked over the parlor, I saw George Aniki and the others gathered, talking. It looked like they were talking about the magic circle that had been painted onto the shutter. As Uncle Hideyoshi thought back to that time, he started drawing the shape in the margins of Maria's notebook. Yes, Maria's second only to grandfather in knowledge of the occult, so she might understand what it meant.
I think it was probably something like that. There was a mark like a cross, but tweaked a bit. And then there were those closely packed strange letters all inside the outer circle, like this. And there was something written on all four sides of the cross, and in the empty spaces in the corners as well. It didn't look like the alphabet or something like that. It was what they call ancient characters. Around the top of the circumference, there was a small mark. 5 small circles arranged in a plus sign and a straight line connecting them. Ah, yes, there definitely was something like that drawn here. Yep, this was it. There was no mistaking the shape. I don't know the exact characters, but the arrangement was nearly the same.
Everyone was staring down at the shape, so I stared down at it too. From what I saw, it has been painted on the shutter to the storehouse with some material that looked like blood. I see. This sure is unsettling. Grandfather's about the only one who would get into his head to draw this nonsense. Seriously, where did he go? I want to grab him and ask him what... Jessica's voice contained impatience and anger. She hadn't gone so far as to say that grandfather was the culprit, but it looked as though she thought that grandfather definitely knew what the culprit's identity. Certainly, if you asked around for the link that bound the Ushinomiya family and the occult together, 10 out of 10 people would name grandfather. And to a person who knew nothing of the occult, this strange mark would have no meaning, which meant that this might have been something addressed to grandfather. That's right, the reason to advertise the crime is to show it off to the survivors. In that case, where had grandfather as the essential recipient of this message disappeared off to? Does the shape ring any bells? Be right back. One sec. Back. Maria looked at the shape with a serious face. Maybe she was enthusiastic since she was her area of expertise. However, her appearance was that of someone separated from the events at hand. As though this thing hadn't been drawn and the shutter closed around her mother's corpse. My first impression was that this design resembled some kind of foreign cross-like symbol.
Oh, it certainly does have that kind of design. Does that mean it has something to do with a foreign country? The cross symbol was originally a crest from a religious order of knights and was supposed to protect pilgrims traveling to sacred places.
And this magic circle has something religious? It has some religious meaning or something? This is starting to sound like gibberish. When I looked over at all of them, preparing to jump into this discussion, something shocked me. Ah! Interesting. Is there anything in her eye? Doesn't look like it. Maria was grinning, an eerie expression on her face that defied description. A sort of grin, almost like she was making fun of everyone's ignorance. It was an expression that I wouldn't ever have believed Maria to be capable of making. Ah, nah. Okay, there's definitely something in her eyes now. It doesn't look like Beatriz, but it might be. Her fang got pointier. And I know for a fact because of the Ruby Tomato emotes and stickers that Beatriz has a fang, so that's interesting. No, it kinda does look like Beatriz in her eyes. The shadow. And then she laughed. An eerie, jarring laugh, as though I was looking at it right in front of my eyes. I really didn't want to accept it as real. Oh my god! Okay. Was she looking at me? Interesting. Curious. Okay. It's the Beatriz song. It's completely wrong. Can you tell just by the... While everyone was scared out of their wits, Maria alone kept on cackling happily. After a while, that laugh suddenly and abruptly cut off. But her expression was still like that, someone completely different from Maria. This is the seventh magic circle of the sun. Characters are Hebrew. Landed here.
Oh, yes.
Maria stole the writing materials from the stunned Hideyoshi's hand. She then started drawing another magic circle effortlessly right next to the one that Hideyoshi had drawn. See? It was this kind of shape, right?
Yes, it was.
But Maria, that's incredible. You really do know a lot. Jessica tried to smooth things over by praising Maria. Maybe she wanted to make sure that this was still the Maria who everyone knew so well, but Maria didn't give her any particular response. Maria started bluntly writing unfamiliar characters in the corners of the shape. At this sight, the eyes of Uncle Hideyoshi and Dr. Nanjo instantly began to widen. And the forearms cross are the names of the angels who preside over air, fire, water, and earth. Kasam, Harel, Talihad, and Forlak. And in the four diagonal directions are the names of the four great rulers. Hariel, Seraph, Barshis, Sherab. Do they match? Even if you are unable to correctly write what you have seen, if you are once again shown something identical, it isn't difficult to state that the two are the same. As for Maria, whether they matched, Uncle Hideyoshi and Dr. Nanjo nodded over and over again.
It's unmistakable, yes. Those kind of characters were definitely written there. How can you write something like that? There was also characters written around the circumference.
No. Like this, right? Maria began jotting down Hebrew all around the circumference. Here's from the Old Testament's book of Psalms. Psalm 116 verses 16 and 17. You must at least read the Bible. Acting as though knowing this was only common sense, Maria laughed. For a while, everyone, including me, was at a loss for words. After some moments, George Aniki returned to his senses and slowly managed to speak. That's incredible. I'm surprised. So, what meaning does this magic circle have? It's a magic circle to borrow the power of the sun. He who wears it as a talisman drawn in gold shall receive the power to break free from the bonds of any prison and gain freedom. Break free from the bonds and gain freedom? It sounds deep. The word bonds is not limited to its interpretation to some kind of physical object. Therefore, it does not only hold meaning for people locked up in an actual jail, it can also refer to the release from mental bonds such as ties of obligation and inescapable fate. Ties of obligation and inescapable fate, you say? That's also pretty deep.
But I really don't understand. What does this have to do with those 6 bodies?
Alright, I thought they were gonna say it, but since they will not, I'm gonna look up those verses. So, verse 7, no, 16. Already seen something. Why did the game... Okay, there we go. Truly, I am your servant, Lord. I serve you just as my mother did. You have freed me from my chains. Ooh, that's good. What about 17? Okay, right, let's read it together. Truly I am your servant, Lord. I serve you just as my mother did. You have freed me from my chains. I will sacrifice a thank offering to you and call on the name of the Lord. Interesting. Very interesting. The weird thing is that, are we thinking that Lord is Beatrice? Because I think that Mother is more fitting. But Beatrice doesn't seem to be the type to serve anyone else. So the fact that it says, I shall serve you just as my mother did, I don't know. Definitely many ways to read this. The use of the word servant too is very interesting, isn't it? Obviously, I will sacrifice a thank offering to you, the sacrifices. But I'm just wondering if it's like a family member who knows that their mother is Beatrice, because come on, it's pretty obvious that they have to be related to Beatrice because of their hair color and eye colors. So it's saying that they shall serve this lord, maybe Kinsel, just how Beatrice served him. But she wasn't exactly serving him. I mean, I guess in a way she was, right, by giving him the gold. But she was the master. She had control over Kinsel. So it's more like she was the lord. So it could either be a child of Beatrice, one of the family members, saying, I shall serve you just as my mother Beatrice served you. Here's a sacrifice. Or the mother part is just, I'm just looking too much into it, and it's just, what it's saying is just that they're making a sacrifice to Beatrice because they want to serve Beatrice. Anyways, enough yapping. Interesting, very interesting.
really don't understand. What does that have to do with the 6 bodies? Far from being released, they were killed and snuffed in the storehouse, weren't they?
Well, they were released from the confines of the inheritance in this family. It makes sense to me. It's not like the magic circle was drawn for their sakes. The 6 of them were there for the sake of the magic circle. Ah, okay. They were the sacrifice, and the magic circle was, yeah. We're good. It is truly pitiable. What do you mean? What in the world do you mean when you say the 6 of them were there for the sake of the magic circle? Maria lifted up her index finger and wagged it as if she was making fun of us. That's written around the circumference. Can't you read? Psalm 116 verses 16 and 17. Oh my god, I always do things just before they're about to do it for me. Oh my gosh. I'll read it for you. The Lord has freed me from my chains. I will offer to you the sacrifice of thanksgiving and will call on the name of the Lord. See? See, you say? I have no idea what you're saying. You're saying that there are sacrifices. If the part that Maria had just read out loud was the vital part of the magic circle, then it was saying that the benefit of this magic circle required sacrifices to be offered in exchange. Typical Umineko experience. So inside the storehouse where the magic circles have been drawn, the sacrifices have been offered. It looked like everyone else had slowly arrived at the same conclusion. Some were shocked, others spat out they're insane as they punched their knees. This was starting to become seriously disturbing story, and we couldn't accept it nor understand it. I don't care what kind of magic circles or curses other people believe in. That's their right, and I won't pick a fight with them. But did they really kill Dad and the rest as sacrifices for some bullshit like that? I just couldn't stand that feeling. I'd rather still be disgusted over all that talk around the inheritance. As I started getting pissed off with a feeling of anger and sadness, I broke from the circle everyone it was in and returned once again to the window. Something had gone insane since yesterday. That letter was the witch Beatriz and Maria had read out loud at last night's dinner. I feel like ever since that point this whole mansion and this whole island have begun to be drawn into some kind of peculiar world. That's right. When I think back on it, that letter was an invitation from the witch. The ruler of the nighttime island had invited us inhabitants of the day into another world. With the phone and the radio interrupted and the island shut off by the typhoon, you could now call it another world cut off from the real one. Yes, on this island right now, it is perfectly normal for witches to send letters and for sacrifices to be offered to magic circles. So what will happen next? Will some weird people wearing goat masks start doing the Bond Festival dance or something? It's no good, I don't get it. The inside of my head's still all screwed up and I don't even know what to think. Anger, sadness, the opposing emotions all swirled up together and they started to suck me in. Unable to resist, I could do nothing but cover my eyes with my hands and entrust my mind and body to the spiral swallowing me. As I started losing heart, I began to recall a distant memory. It was from when I was very young. I had unfortunately seen a scary occult movie on TV, and for a while I haven't even been able to go into the bathroom by myself. That old bastard had given an exaggerated laugh and said this.
Hey, Butler. Why do you think they go to all the trouble to make movies like this about demons and the occult and such? It's because they don't exist. Something that ridiculous can't be found anywhere on the planet. Because they don't exist, people want to see them and go to a lot of effort making them. That's why those occult movies just make me laugh. If you ask me, rather than demons and monsters, this year's earnings call and angry wives are 100 million times scarier. I'll go further, alright? If you ask me. Being scared is an emotion for the entertainment of people who have too much time on their hands and too much empty space on their minds. They have so much free time, they don't know what to do with it. So in order to play around with unusual emotions, they created a culture of demons and monsters and stuff.
Seriously? Why have I been acting so damn thick-headed? I was totally taken in. To hell with that shit. This is the human world. As if I give a crap about witches, demons, magic circles, and sacrifices. The human who killed Dad and everyone else is still on this island. That's all there is to this, right? Next to start speaking to my heart was Kairi-san. You know, in chess and shogi, the deeper you proceed into the main attack, the very last moment of the endgame, the more limited your best possible moves become. Therefore, in that very moment when you're backing someone against the wall, or someone is doing the same to you, both players' moves become infinitely easier to read. In other words, when you are completely cornered and you think you have no moves left, that is the moment when it is easiest to read your opponent. However, when a person is forced into a defensive position, they can't help but lose their ability to think clearly, so they forget to read their opponent's moves. That's when you flip over the chessboard. With all of my strength, I slapped my face with both my hands. Now my eyes were truly open. When you don't understand anything and you're completely cornered just like I am now, isn't that the perfect time to flip over the chessboard? With us put on the defensive, we couldn't even guess it's a culprit scheme. If you flipped it over and looked at it the other way, just how far could you see? First off, at the time of the murders were committed by the culprit, they knew that the island was cut off by the typhoon. So they should have understood that even if they carried out the murders, they wouldn't be able to get away until the next morning. In short, the culprit had begun without securing a way to escape. Furthermore, the bastard had even tossed the corpses in the storehouse, while doing the courtesy of telling us they are here with that weird graffiti. In other words, since we would probably find the corpses sooner or later, they wanted to show us them. If we had all been them, and hadn't noticed a strange shed, perhaps the culprit's goal would have not been achieved. If you think about it that way, that murdering maniac. Since this morning, he must have been watching our every move with bated breath. After all, if we hadn't been so kind as to discover that, what was on the storehouse. All of that hard work in preparation that they have done last night would have just gone poof. What did the culprit want to make us feel by showing us the corpses in the storehouse? All 6 of the bodies had their faces noticeably destroyed. A grudge, a warning. The effacement of the bodies had occurred after death. So it hadn't been the means by which the culprit had murdered. It didn't mean anything to those who had been killed. It had meaning to those who discovered it. The culprit wanted to show us this. Look how brutally I killed them. After thinking this way, I really want to tell the asshole to stop taking me so lightly. Who would dance to that tune? If I'm told, please be scared, I'm not just gonna say, really? Sure thing. When someone tells the great Ushinomiya Battler entrance this way, I'm the kind of guy who will start wanting to sneak in through the window. The next thing that had me concerned was the attempt at a magic circle on the shutter. It was a genuine magic circle declared authentic when even Maria, who had demonstrated that her knowledge of the occult rivaled even grandfather's. They must have drawn that thing in pitch-black darkness while holding an umbrella in one hand. It must have been taking them a lot of time, but a formidable amount of hard work and attention to detail. What purpose would have been worth all that effort? If something related to the occult happened in this mansion, most likely we would all automatically suspect the involvement of grandfather. They want to make us think grandfather was involved. But if that was all they wanted, they could have just drawn any old scribble that looked like a magic circle. It wasn't like any of us amateurs would have told the difference between genuine and fake. However, this magic circle was genuine. Furthermore, it had even been written in Hebrew. This magic circle had a message that could only be understood by someone with knowledge of the occult. Messages from a form of communication. We send them and hope for a reaction from the other party. Reaction? For some reason, we couldn't find grandfather now. I don't know how grandfather would have managed to see the magic circle on the shutter. But had he chosen to hide himself in reaction to the sign? No. Also, the traps make us suspect grandfather's involvement. You could read it that either way. Damn, that's annoying. What kind of reaction was the culprit hoping to get out of us by showing this imitation of the occult? Somehow that felt like the culprit's weak point. The section of Beatrice's letter that Maria had read along during the last night's dinner sprang back into my mind. The part that said, I ask that you enjoy your battle of wits. Sounds like fun. This is a battle of wits between us and the witch. Which will be the first of us being swallowed up by your occult games. Or me revealing you for who you are. There was a whole day until the typhoon passes. Why not enjoy ourselves? That was a very cool declaration of war, basically. Very interesting. I I don't know what to think. All your theories are wrong. Goodbye. I got nothing. I'm gonna stick with what I think, and that's it. I finally noticed that the inside of the parlor had gone quiet again. Everyone had sunk into their favorite sofa, some deep in thought, some irritated, some depressed. Maria had once again enjoying the television as if she had never left it. It looked like she found the commercials more fun than the boring program, and she happily yelled, and giggled. My god, enough! Mods, ban that guy. 30 minutes. I stared at each person's appearance in turn. If there isn't a 19th person, the culprit must be in this room. They just put too much thought in my head. I don't think there's a 19th person. No, it's just... There's too much. There's too much, and I don't have enough information to declare one as the truth. Because there could be a 19th person, aka Beatrice. Beatrice could just be a 19th person who is chilling, watching us. Or Beatrice could be one of the 18 people in here. Like, who is to say one of the dead people is truly dead? Like, I was already thinking that Shannon was like a form of Beatrice, right? What if she isn't dead? What if she was just faking being dead? Right? And so Beatrice could be one of us. Beatrice could be someone else. And then there's the fact that maybe Beatrice didn't kill them because... No. Beatrice did not kill them. Beatrice had nothing to do with the murders. I think I can 200% declare that Beatrice had nothing to do with the murders. Because the riddle says the six chosen by the key. I don't think Beatrice is the key. Because the riddle later says that the witch will awaken later in the twilight. Not the, the first twilight. Yeah, on the ninth twilight is when the Beatrice shows up. So Beatrice is uninvolved until the ninth twilight. Which means, on the first twilight, Beatrice has nothing to do with it. It was a sacrifice by the key. So who's the key? At first I thought it was Badler. I no longer think that. Earlier I said that now I think it is Kinson. And that makes sense. So I think right now, my definitive theory, my thought, is that yes. I mean, no, what about the verses? Truly I am your servant, Lord. I served you just as my mother did. I mean, no. Holy cow. Didn't I say that I was assuming that the previous Ushinomiya family, before Kinso became the head, also made a deal with Beatrice because they also had a horrible end where a bunch of tragedies befell them at once? So maybe that's what it means by I shall serve you as my mother did. So Kinso did kill everyone. Kinso killed the six people, the six sacrifices. The magic circle was written for Beatrice. So, truly I am your servant, Lord. That means, truly I am your servant, Beatrice. I served you just as my mother did, meaning that he will do the same as the previous Ushinomiya family did by making a deal with Beatrice. So mother doesn't mean like an actual mother. It's just a ancestral figure. That's what it means. So that would be the previous family. So it's just a cycle. Like at the end of the game, if Battler truly survives, Battler's gonna be the one who stays as the head of the third cycle of the Ushinomiya family. He's gonna make a deal with Beatriz, and then the cycle will continue again and again. That's just the cycle of the Ushinomiya family. And every time a cycle repeats, everything gets lost about them because everything gets destroyed. So the next cycle of the Ushinomiya family can't connect the dots. Like, we know that the previous one all got burned or whatever. We're like, why? I don't know. Who cares? So yeah, that's what's gonna happen. And then you have freed me from my chain. That's just, I don't think that's too much important to read into. It's just, it could mean a lot of things. They freed him emotionally, freed him from the world, whatever. And then the next verse, I will sacrifice a thank you offering to you, obviously the 6 sacrifices, and call on the name of the Lord, call on the name of Beatrice. So, Boom Bam Bao, I think it's Kinso. Kinso sacrificed everyone. Kinso is the key. And now the only other thing is, did Kinso use the servants to help him? I think it's very likely. I think they are furniture. They would not say no, no matter what. So I think that Kinso did not do it alone. I think that Kinso did indeed use the help of the servants to kill everyone. But that is the only other thing I can add to that. But besides that, I think Kinso did it, and I think Kinso is the key from the riddle. Alright, let's continue. I'm not washed. I'm not losing. I'm not losing. Right now, Aunt Natsuhi was searching the mansion with the servants, though wasn't she? Then it shouldn't be in this room. In this mansion is what I should say. After all, there was also the possibility that Aunt Natsuhi was behind this, and we still couldn't deny that one of the servants could be the killer. Anyone could be the bad guy. Still, Aunt Natsuhi and the rest sure are slow. Of course, it's not a small mansion, but isn't this taking a little too long just to walk around checking the windows and doors? Okay, but why those sacrifices? Kraus makes the most sense, right? He was the most grr, right? He was stinky. Rudolph, I think you can count him on that because he was equally as money hungry. But then why not kill Eva Hideyoshi? Okay, let's see. I think Kurosawa. If Kinso is the culprit, I think with Kurosawa he has too much history with. I think Kinso respects Kurosawa in a way because she has been there for so long. Because yeah, like they keep talking about how servants leave after 3 years, and she's clearly been here the longest. So I think that's why Kinso respects her. Goda, obviously, Kinso could see how slimy he was. Kanon, I would have no idea why Kinso would not want to kill Kanon. Maybe because he's the most furniture-like and knew that he would follow any order. Shannon, I think he saw that she was becoming too human by, falling in love and all that. So he didn't see any use for her anymore. And Genji, obviously, we already know that Kinso and Genji are tight. Nanjo, obviously, also very tight friends. We never kill him. Rosa is a bit weird. I think Rosa was because she was the weakest. She didn't fight for anything. She was always hiding behind someone or following someone else, right? And Kinso didn't like that. He wants someone with backbone. Uh, so he couldn't see her as a true heir of the Ushinomiya family. Maria, I think, not only because of her love of the occult, which I'm sure he can see in her, but also, look at her. She's just a spitting image of Beatrice. He would never ever be able to bring harm to her. Butler? I I wouldn't really know a reason why not to kill Butler, but I think it's because he's been away for so long that it's like he doesn't. know better enough, I guess, or respects him in a way for trying to not be involved with the family matters. Kairi, I think Kinso was just didn't care for her. She was nothing burger. Kinso did not care for her. She just came into the family, barely do anything. So Kinso was like, nah, out of here. Rudolph, I just already said because he was very money hungry and just wanted after his money. Now, these are weird. I think all of these are because of respect. I think George and Hideyoshi fall under the same thing. Kinso sees them as genuine, real men who are building their own businesses. Like Hideyoshi does need money, but he did make it by himself, and it's like out of everyone's businesses, his is pretty good. I forgot the discussion they had, but I forgot. Maybe like they did say that his business is failing as well, but maybe the success of the business doesn't matter. It's just Kinso can respect the fact that both of these people are men that are trying to do better by their family. They are working not just for themselves, but like they have earned what they have gotten. Eva, I think Eva is the same reason as Maria, because she is the spitting image of Beatriz. Jessica, I think there's another. Let's go backwards here. With Kraus, we already know, very, like the most money hungry out of all of them. Barely cares for his father, only wants his money. Obviously, get him out. But now these two are my favorites. And like, okay, my favorites as in characters, but that's not what I meant. My favorites as in the meaning to Kinso that I really like, at least what I'm piecing together. Obviously, we literally had Kinso saying to Natsuki that she is the most Ushinomiya out of everyone, even if she is not allowed to wear the crest. Kinso respects her a lot, like a lot. And it makes me so happy, and I hope that's not some ruse or a prank or anything. Because it just means a lot. She's an outsider. She married into the family, but she cares so much for the family. She cared more than Kraus. Like you saw how hard she was defending. Like that must have been another thing that really pushed Kinso into liking Natsui. Because you saw in the argument how hard she was defending the family, and Kraus did not try to defend the family at all. It was Natsuki who was doing it, and she did it so hard she had to be kicked out of the room by Kraus. And we know that Kanon was relating what was happening in the argument to Kinso. We saw the scene where he was repeating what was happening. So Kinso obviously did hear all of that. So he very much respects her a lot for being the only one who truly super duper cares about the family above anyone else. Not for the money. She just cares about the dignity, the honor, and the family name. And she has a backbone, as we saw. She fights. She fights if someone dares to put any stain on her family. Kinso has to respect that. We literally see that he does respect it. And now Jessica, I also feel the same. I think that Kinso sees Natsuki in Jessica. I think that's why he is so hard on her. And also the fact that she is always there, right? She Kinso sees that Jessica is very immature right now, and she is not up to par to be an Ushinomiya at all. But he can see the makings of an Ushinomiya in her, and that is why she also respects her. He practically sees her as another daughter, I think. Which sucks because it means that she gets beaten by his cane, but it's his way of caring, I guess, and showing respect. So I really hope I'm right about these two. They mean a lot to me. So I think everything I said makes makes sense to me. And I really hope Kinso was the culprit because it just makes sense. Because everyone who died, like the ones who survived, with some I struggled to find meaning on why they would survive, but not really. I could find something. But with the ones that died, except for Shannon, No, not even. Literally all of them. All 6 that have died, I can confidently say why I think they died. Kraus and Rudolph, money hungry. Kairi because she's nothing burger, she has served nothing to the family. Rosa because she's weak, and Kinso doesn't like weak people. Shannon, she was becoming too human. And Goda because he was also slimy, along with Rudolph and Kraus, although for different reasons. Rudolph and Kraus were slimy because of money. Goda was slimy because of, what's it called, of clout. He wanted more attention by the head. So there you go. There you go. I got it. I got it. It makes sense to me. It makes sense to me. Can't wait to be met next chapter with another all your theories are wrong. Goodbye. The only thing that stumps me is the blood in Natsui's doorknob. Because at first I was thinking she was going to be killed, but the scorpion protected her. But now I'm saying that if Kinso is the culprit, why would she want to kill her? I have no answer to that part, I'm afraid. I fell off on that, I'm washed on that. Like, maybe he just wanted to see her. Just for the funny. But I am unsure about that. Because there is a small chance that he wanted to kill Natsui. But because of this charm, he couldn't. So he had to hastily kill someone else, probably Gola or Shannon. So maybe one of the 6 wasn't supposed to be chosen and it was supposed to be Natsuhi. But I don't like that. It's very possible, but I don't like that because of what I just said about how he respects Natsuhi. But that's another possibility. I won't deny it. Alright, that's it. End of yap. Bro washed and gave us a 30 minutes yapathon by Bimina. Oh, it always works. You don't put... I'm like Natsuhi right now. You don't disgrace me by calling me washed in the thing that I specialize in. How dare you? I had to prove my worth. Of course, it's not a small mansion, but isn't this taking a little too long just to walk around checking the windows and doors? Just as I thought that, Aunt Natsuki and the rest returned. Not one of them was missing, but the relief was short-lived. Everyone looked at Aunt Natsuki shocked. Huh? The talk I had with Aunt Eva started to creep back into my mind. The possibility that the culprits had enough in numbers or weapons to kill all of the 6 at once. Oh! Oh my goodness gracious! See? This is why Kinso respects her. Kraus would never do this. Kraus would never, ever do this. She is the real Ushinomiya. Oh, I love her. She's so goated. Dude, please, dude. Ruby. Anyone else is here, you'll sense. Like, streams and playthrough. It's over the moment Natsuhi dies. She dies and that's it. I'm uninstalling. So like, if she dies, just know you now know when the playthrough will end. So there you go. It is crazy how she became my favorite so fast. She is the best. Sorry if I started you. I brought this to be prepared for the worst. Because the thing in Anatsui's hand was a rifle. At a glance, the silhouette looked a lot like a hunting gun. But it was unusually short, kind of like a kid-sized gun. He loves Umineko. He loves. However, it had a thickness to it which revealed that this was definitely not some kid's toy.
Isn't that Kiso-san's gun?
Did you know about it? How do I hide the text box? H? No. Crap! I can just check the controls. Oh, I was escape. Okay, screenshot that. She is smiling while holding a shotgun, dude. Did you know about it? That's right. I remember that there was a Father's Sword collection and I managed to find it. Whoa! Awesome. I'm Natsui's thing real? Yes, it's real. I can fire live ammunition. Long ago, Father used it to scare off wild birds. Wild seagulls? Oh, I remember. Where could that thing have come from? No matter how much I asked him to let me touch it, he never let me lay even one finger on it. Huh. Grandfather had one of these. I didn't know. Long ago, Grandfather was really addicted to westerns. That generation really liked that kind of rifle. It looks like it has some considerable history to it. But I've never seen one this short before.
Ah, I remember that guy. That's the one the gunman goes firing off with in that old movie I used to love. Father sure has good taste. Long ago, Master had that brought over specifically from America. As you can see, it is a real gun, so I would ask that you keep it a secret.
He was quite tickled by it when he first got his hands on it. It seems the workers that ejected the cartridges were more interesting to him than shooting it, and he played around with it back in the forest all the time.
Still, what a dangerous thing. I'm sure you should be dragging this out. This is preparing for the worst. There's probably more than one of them. Furthermore, they are terrifying people who killed 6 of us, including my husband. I have the responsibility to protect everyone until tomorrow in my husband's place. As Satsui-san said this, she slumped down into one of the sofas and took a deep breath. As well as checking the doors and windows, she had also been trying to find Grandfather. Since Grandfather was not with her, apparently his whereabouts were still unknown. I carefully checked all of the doors and windows throughout the mansion. However, we must be prepared for anything. Everyone, I think it would be best if we all remain here. I agree. If everyone is gathered here, then we can all feel more secure by keeping an eye on each other. What do you mean by that, Eva-san? Nothing really. I'm just agreeing with your opinion, aren't I? There was a dangerous atmosphere between the two of them. If you thought about who stood to gain the most from the inheritance problem standpoint, Auntie Eva was the obvious answer. However, there was no proof that Aunt Natsui was innocent. No, if you view Beatrice's letter as Grandfather's elaborate prank, and think of the incident as just an extension of that, there was more than enough evidence to doubt even Grandfather. Aunt Natsui thought that the criminal was on the outside, but Auntie Eva thought the criminal was on the inside. In short, it was the question of whether or not a 19th person exists. It was a doubt that had been repeated endlessly since last night's dinner with the letter from the witch who called herself Beatrice. So the culprit among us or not? And so was the culprit among us or not? Among us. And did the witch Beatrice exist or not? If you assume that something as stupid as a witch couldn't exist, it was the same as saying that one of these relatives here, who shared a common bloodline, was the culprit. If you didn't like that, it would be much more comfortable to simply accept the fairy tale about the witch. Did the witch do it? Draw that weird magic circle and sacrifice those people. If I could only accept that rubbish, I would be able to completely trust everyone in this room. However, damn common sense got in the way. I kept repeating that witches don't exist. In that case, the culprit was among us. In the middle of the seemingly endless rain, none of us could break out our silence. That was a great chapter. That is the best chapter yet. That was fantastic. Holy cow. Occult. Among Us. I believe this is a great time to stop at chapter end. Episode 1, chapter 12. I wish to know how many chapters episode 1 has, if I may, before I end stream. I can finally study, oh my gosh. 26. Interesting. Understood, understood. Very well. That is all for now. Thank you for telling me, and thank you for watching. And any other lurkers like Semsules, anyone else, thank you as well. I shall see you all next time. Very interesting where this is going. I am quite peaked. No yaps, no yaps. That is all. Farewell to all. Bye bye. Good night.